Hello, everyone. This week, I'm gonna share with my wife a little bit about capacity, illegality, and a third-party rights. Um, Starting with capacity, sometimes there are circumstances in which a person should not be held accountable for a contract they, they enter into due to lack of mental capacity. We will be discussing several situations that might take an individual incapable of entering into a binding contract. Okay. So we're gonna go through some of those. The first one is minors are prone to prone to making irresponsible decisions. Because they're minors. Uh, um, this is partly because their brains are not yet fully developed.
Right, the prefrontal cortex doesn't kick into the 25, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I believe you. Um, Either way, you are not considered legally an adult until you are 18 years old. In many cases, many creditors will require even an 18 years old to find a responsible co-signer because they are still considered to be poor decision makers and high risk. Um, so it is important to realize that when a minor entering into a contract, the contract is voidable, not void simple because they are underage. The minor might void the contract, but the adult party cannot. Therefore, the minor can enforce the contract, but adult cannot. Okay. There are exceptions to this rule. Contracts involving necessities such as food and shelter are enforceable to ensure that providers are not being fully out of their fair value of their services and to encourage such services to continue to be available. Ratification is another exception. This is when you enter a contract as a minor, but continue honoring the contract upon reaching adulthood, like a car payment. Once you turn 18 and make an additional payment, the contract is now writing and you might not void the contract due to being a minor. So the next one is mental illness, insanity. I don't like that one. A rule, as a rule, if you enter into a contract while dealing with mental illness that cause you to make poor decisions and upon receiving help, no longer being mentally ill, see that they enter into a bad contract, you might void said contract. It is important to be able to prove that the mental illness actually impaired the individual's ability to understand the transaction and make responsible decisions. If the contract is voided, they are accountable for returning any property in their possessions that was a part of the contract. If a court determines that were insane in court, any contract you might have part in is void immediately. Next item is
Let me go back and one thing real quick. 2 seconds.
intoxication. Has to do with any individual undergoing the effects of drugs or alcohol. This depends on how inebriated the person was, but if the other party entered into the contract knowing that you were drawn out of your mind, the contract is not considered valid. Any property must be returned to the original owner, such as contract can be ratified, whoever, like in the section on minors, meaning that if the inbraided party upholds their end of the contract once over, they are then fairly accepting the terms of the contract. Illegality, if there are illegal elements to a contract, like illegal drugs, for example, the court is not going to enforce it. If two parties enter into a legal contract and one party breaks said contract, the contract is simply void and the shorted party is simply out of luck. This even applies to agreements that are not obviously illegal. If you accidentally break a law while entering into a contract, the contract is still illegal and void. For this reason, it's important to be aware of every detail when entering into a contract. So the last one, third-party rights. When the term of a contract are passed on to a third party. Assignment of contract rights. If you are entering into a contract on someone else's behalf, you and the other party enter into the contract like normal. But you might assign a third party some of the rights. You will be considered the signer. The second party will be considered the obligor, whose rights do not change, assuming you pull up your end of the bargain. And the third party is assigned the assigner. So
I think it's assignment, right?
this
No, you're right, assignment.
might assign any rights unless it change the obligation of the obligor. The assignment is illegal, or the contract specifically states the assignment is not allowed. Okay, so delegation of duty. Instead of assign rights, you might delegate certain obligation of contract, such as entering into contract and then delegate your responsibility to an employee. Remember, you are delegate a duty and assign a right. You are still liable for upholding your end of the bargain, even if you are not the party performing. So my personal takeaways of this lesson is that it is important to do our due diligence before entering into a contract. Assuming you have the capacity to enter into a contract, you should be aware of who you are entering into a contract with. Be very clear about each detail in the contract you enter into. Ensure that there are legal and there are no possible issues that will leave you empty handed in the case of a breach contract. So that's everything I want to share today.